Hello everyone, Nick the DM here with more Dungeons & Dragons lore, specifically more Celestials. And what better way to start than with one of the lesser known celestial races, the Asuras. So, let's get into it. The Asuras, pronounced Asura, can be referred to as Asuras plural, or an individual can be either an Asuris or an Asura, based on a few different instances among 2nd and 3rd editions, which are the only editions they appear in. Asuras are one of the 5 major groupings of Celestials that are considered true Celestials, or one of the 6 if an individual considers Aasimar among the true Celestials, as I covered in my Celestials video. Asuras are unique among the true Celestials for one main reason. Where the Archons, Aasimar, Eladrin, and Cardinals all contain multiple types of Celestials within their hierarchies, like the Aasimar having Devas, Planetars, and Solars, and the Archons containing Lantern, Hound, and Trumpet Archons among many others, the Asuras only have the Asura, one type with many roles. Asuras are the shining messengers of the gods, as well as righteous warriors and noble avengers. They are luminous figures, shining beacons of good by day and night. Asuras are voices of knowledge, bringing wisdom to mortal priests and seers. They often appear on the prime material plane to guide oracles, mystics, and the faithful. They also carry messages of revenge, punishment, and death to those who have angered the gods. The Asuras are believed to be natives of Isgard, but they roam through the upper planes freely. While most members of this race are chaotic good, there are also some neutral good Asuras. An Asura appears as a tall, thin, and lithe humanoid referring to the general shape, not the creature type. They have flat, white skin, like the color of marble, despite the 3rd edition art depicting otherwise and contradicting its own description. And they have what has been described as almost painfully sharp features. Asuras sport a pair of enormous red wings of rippling, roaring flame, and have clawed feet like that of eagles. Their talons are described as ruby sharp, though in one instance an Asura's talons were said to be ruby tipped. Their hair ranges from red to coppery to golden in coloration, and their bright eyes shine like reddish stars. Typically, Asuras wear loose togas, and male Asuras often wear bronze helms decorated with a feathered crest. Aside from the aforementioned helms, 2nd edition's Warriors of Heaven states that Asuras never wear armor, but they may employ shields and magical protective devices. However, the Asura stat block from 3rd edition's Book of Exalted Deeds lists them as wearing +1 mithril breastplates and +1 buckler shields. And when converting them to 5th edition, the Asuras typically landed in the same range regardless of natural armor or breastplate depending on the edition, so I went with the armor. The optional shield puts them above a Deva's armor class in 5th edition, even though in 3rd edition the shield still had them falling quite short. However, here's a disclaimer. Most creatures do not have magical equipment in 5th edition, even creatures that did in earlier editions, like the Solar having a +5 dancing greatsword in 3rd edition, or a Planetar having a +3 sword in 2nd edition. So when it comes to the 5th edition stat block, I'm not including the magical bonus that is mentioned in the lore, but if you would like to, by all means, just use the information here as described. Warrior of Heaven from 2nd edition stated that male Asuras could be anywhere in height from 5 foot 3 inches to 6 feet tall, and weigh anywhere from 125 to 170 pounds. Whereas female Asura's height ranged from 4 foot 10 inches to 5 foot 7 inches, and could weigh between 105 to 150 pounds. The Book of Exalted Deeds from 3rd edition describes the Asuras as standing 6.5 feet tall and weighing 180 pounds. Asuras are chaotic creatures, as inconstant as a blazing fire. More than any other celestial race, Asuras are prone to certain vices, most of which are attributable to their chaotic nature. Jealousy and envy are common among the Asura, particularly when it comes to competing for the attention of their gods. Although they always mean well, they can be abrasive, judgmental, impulsive, intolerant, and stubborn. However, one thing that can be said about the Asuras is they do not go back on their deals, and they never fail in their duty, though how they go about achieving success is often a matter of personal preference. They smite evil without giving it a second thought and never negotiate with fiends or creatures of a similar nature. Asuras are just about the most passionate celestials imaginable. They are quick to love, quick to anger, impatient with delay, and eager to serve. All Asuras crave conflict, and they prefer to resolve their disputes directly and immediately. They live by a strict moral code that forbids lying, cheating, stealing, associating with or surrendering to evil beings, and allowing evil deeds to go unpunished. An Asura who confronts an evil perpetrator will fight tirelessly until one of them perishes. Though the usually chaotic good Asuras have well-defined societies, they do not impose strict moral guidelines on individuals. Sometimes other celestial beings find them impertinent and needlessly violent. However, most Asuras take great pride in their ability to intimidate and correct evildoers. Despite their love of conflict, Asuras are among the wisest creatures of the Outer Planes according to 2nd edition, with them typically having a wisdom score of 21 in 2nd edition, equal to that of the Planetar. In this edition, this provided them with a number of additional benefits, like immunity to the Charm, Command, Fear, Forget, Friends, Hold Person, Hypnotism, Ray of Enfeeblement, and Scare spells, as well as complete immunity to all illusions. Asuras in 2nd edition had all the spell abilities of a 9th level priest, and received all spell benefits of their high wisdom, which, along with the aforementioned spell immunities, gave them a bonus to their defense against magic spells that attacked the mind, and gave them access to a number of bonus priest spells, specifically 3 1st level, 3 2nd level, 2 3rd level, 3 4th level, and 1 5th level. Not only that, according to 2nd edition's Warriors of Heaven, Asuras also have a supernatural magic resistance, equal to 5 times their own experience levels, up to a maximum of 80%. So a 1st level Asuras has a 5% magic resistance, an 8th level has 40%, and an 18th level Asuras has 80% magic resistance. In 3rd edition, Asuras have a somewhat disappointing 14 wisdom, but that's probably because it isn't tied to spell resistance in that edition. But they do have a spell resistance of 19 or 23 against evil spells and spells cast by evil outsiders, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, meant the caster of the spell needed to make a caster level check to even make their spell affect the Asura in the first place, before they were subject to any saving throws. So, for their wisdom conversion, comparing it to other similar creatures, it leveled out just a bit lower than a 5th edition Deva on average. In addition, Asuras were immune to fire, petrification, charms, and compulsions. Also, according to Warriors of Heaven, Asuras could cast priestly spells from any sphere of influence, or any domain as they are referred to in recent editions, and they could cast them as if they were 1 level higher than they were, giving them whatever benefits came from casting spells at a higher level. Asuras from 3rd edition had the following spell-like abilities: At Will, Detect Good, Detect Evil, Discern Lies, and True Seeing. And once per day each, they could cast Holy Smite and Magic Circle against evil, self only, with a caster level of 8 for all of those spells. And their spellcasting ability was Charisma. Instead of giving the Asuras in 5th edition the spell True Seeing, I just gave them True Sight, as the Planetar and Solar have that in 5th edition, and the Asura could cast it at will in 3rd edition, and was immune to illusions entirely in 2nd. Any other spells I just compared to 5th edition spells and matched them to whichever worked the same way, not necessarily the spell of the same name, because the names of spells would change throughout editions, but their functions can be compared to other spells, so that's how I did the conversion there. As for their other ability scores, their strength was hard to pinpoint as 2nd edition only had a range for the Asuras, but their 3rd edition scores worked out well enough that I can feel confident giving them an 18. Dexterity was never bad, but they certainly didn't specialize in it. Constitution, like their hit dice, wasn't anything of note. They had genius-level intellects as of 2nd edition, but 3rd edition places them at a 10, which is just about common or average, which was the same level as a Hound Archon of that edition, though in 2nd edition their intelligence was much higher than that of a Hound Archon, so it worked out to be somewhere between the two comparisons. Their charisma was always one of their better ability scores, 3rd edition making it their best. And that worked out to be the case in the 5th edition conversion as well, with it being tied along with wisdom and strength for the highest ability score. The Asura's fiery eyes allowed them to see with the same effect as a Fire Truth spell in 2nd edition. The original spell used a candle that the target would talk into while speaking. The flame of said candle then guttered when the target told half-truths or slight deceptions, and the flame extinguished entirely when the target lied. For the Asuras, their eyes just dimmed when a lie was told. Though Warriors of Heaven simplifies this into allowing them to cast Detect Lies at will. In addition, their vision allowed them to stare with the same effect as True Seeing 3 times per day. The results of their supernatural sight led them to a somewhat skeptical view of prime material creatures. It is also said that Asuras possess the ability to temporarily grant the boon of discerning truth from lies to mortals who face an Asura's examination and answer their questions truthfully. This has been noted on 2 occasions, from a rogue Asura on Elysium, and in the novel Timora's Luck. In Warriors of Heaven, the Advanced D&D 2nd edition supplement, a large section of the book is dedicated to allowing players to play as a Celestial, and that provides us with some insight into the aspects of the Asura and how they level up. For instance, Asura player characters were noted to receive a +3 bonus to Wisdom, a +2 bonus to Intelligence, and a -1 penalty to Constitution. And each ability score had to fall within a certain range for beginning Asuras. We are also told that all Asuras are fighters as a class restriction, and there was no limit to the level they could achieve. They also still received hit dice for leveling up like any other player character. In the Book of Exalted Deeds for 3rd edition, the example picture of the prestige class Sword of Righteousness is an Asura. It's a prestige class for martial classes, but at least we know that Asuras are noted to branch out a bit from classic fighter in 3rd edition. Back to 2nd edition, the natural armor class of an Asuras was a -2, which was equal to a number of adult chromatic dragons or the young red dragon as of 2nd edition. And adding a shield to the 5th edition conversion would allow their armor class to match a young dragon in 5th edition. Asuras generally spoke their own language, plus any additional ones they could learn based on their intelligence score. The same thing was said in 3rd edition's Book of Exalted Deeds, where they are listed as speaking only Celestial. However, for the 5th edition conversion, I gave them Celestial and Common. I mean, how effective could a messenger be without being able to deliver a message? And most 5th edition Celestials can speak either Common and Celestial, or just all languages. Among their proficiencies in 2nd edition, most Asuras had Planar Direction Sense, Planar Survival among the upper planes, and Planar Sense, which essentially allowed them to predict any changes in the conditions of the upper planes, like air breathability, weather, gravity, etc. along with any other proficiencies they might have chosen upon leveling up. In 3rd edition, the skills they were proficient in were concentration, diplomacy, escape artist, intimidate, knowledge the planes, listen, sense motive, spot, survival with a higher bonus on other planes, and use rope with an additional bonus to bindings. Their wings, as one might expect, granted Asuras the ability to fly. As of Advanced D&D 2nd edition, flying creatures were given maneuverability classes to define how skilled the creature was at flight. 2 different 2nd edition sources provide the Asuras with 2 different maneuverability classes. Warriors of Heaven gives them a Class C ranking. This rank was held by creatures like birds, harpies, gargoyles, many magic items, and most dragons. This limited a creature to requiring forward momentum to maintain flight, moving at least half their speed forward to stay in the air. And additionally, they could only make one 90-degree turn per round, and could only make one pass at a target every 2 rounds. But the Monsters Compendium Al-Qadim Appendix gives the Asuras Class A maneuverability. This class was typically reserved for creatures from the elemental plane of air, or those flying magically. This ranking meant a creature had virtually total command over their movements in the air, allowing them to hover, face any direction in a given round, and attack every round from the air. Both their flight and on-ground movement were comparable to most chromatic and metallic dragons, if not better, though movement in 2nd edition was vast and varied greatly. And in 3rd edition, Asuras had a 30 feet on-foot speed and a 60-foot fly speed, and had a maneuverability class of Good, which essentially made them slower at turning and ascending in flight. Though when comparing other Celestials of 3rd edition to 5th edition, there were a number of changes to flight speed, so the 5th edition conversion received a slight boost. According to 2nd edition sources, troops of Asuras on their home planes generally carried fiery spears and scimitars, and hosts of them used trumpets for signaling. The sound of these trumpets are said to echo for miles and are capable of putting to flight hordes of evil creatures before even a single blow is struck. The Book of Exalted Deeds gives us a different equipment list. According to that source, Asuras travel light and prefer the scimitar and bow, but a typical Asura will have the following equipment: a +1 mithril breastplate, a +1 buckler shield, a +1 flaming scimitar, a trumpet of doom, which I converted for this stat block, a masterwork composite longbow, which gave them a bonus to damage based on strength, and a quiver of 20 normal arrows. Also, the Asura's natural weapons and any weapon it wielded were considered chaotic and good for the purposes of overcoming damage reduction or immunity. When an Asura wishes to remain inconspicuous, it can polymorph self as often as twice per day to appear as a human or demi-human. In this form, Asuras are still capable fighters, but they rely primarily on their spellcasting abilities. They remain attractive regardless of their apparent age or race. In 3rd edition, this ability changed. Rather than being able to cast Polymorph on themselves, the Asuras were given the Change Shape supernatural ability, which allowed them to assume the form of any small or medium humanoid while keeping their statistics the same. Asuras roam the upper planes freely. When not carrying messages for the powers or crushing some heinous evil, they go where they please. Though if an Asuras is not powerful enough to cast Plane Shift or another similar spell, they have to use portals to travel from one plane to the next. So many low-level Asuras tend to confine themselves to the upper planes. On the upper planes, the Asuras are organized into volunteer legions, brigades, and cohorts led by charismatic leaders. Though, regardless of the size, such groupings of Asuras are typically called hosts. Though all members of such hosts are expected to obey their leaders absolutely, they are free to leave one unit and join another at any time. Their service is freely rendered and freely accepted. According to 2nd edition, the leaders of these hosts have double an Asura's typical hit dice and maximum hit points. Additionally, they also have a wisdom of 22, which grants them access to new spells and new spell immunities, notably an additional 4th and 5th level spell, and immunity to the Charm Monster, Confusion, Emotion, Fumble, and Suggestion spells. And Warriors of Heaven adds that the leaders of Asura hosts are usually high-level Asuras with high constitution as well as high wisdom. I'll dive more into the specifics of that in a moment. The totality of the Asuras refers to itself as the Grand Celestial Host. The general of all Asuras is a radiant, handsome, and wise figure named Absalom, a 25th level Asuras warrior. His celestial legion numbers in the thousands and operates exclusively in the outer planes, and those who have served with him in campaigns against the Beatezu, Tanari, and Yugoloths believe that they have found the true purpose of their existences. Like the Celestial Paragons I spoke about in my Celestials video, Absalom is merely a powerful servant of good, not a deity. This meant in 2nd edition he could not grant spells, though with recent editions he could absolutely qualify as a warlock patron. Occasionally, Asuras commanders call upon their low-level followers to avenge a death, particularly if the victim's friends and family are unable or unwilling to enact vengeance themselves. Other missions appropriate for an Asuras might involve tracking down and destroying fiendish infiltrators, retaking a keep on the upper planes or outlands that has fallen to evil warmongers, accompanying an Eladrin sage on a mission to recover vital herbs and medicines to cure some planar plague, discouraging a self-righteous Aasimar from enforcing law in a chaotic town on Arborea, stopping a group of huntsmen terrorizing the Beastlands, or delivering an important message from a planar power to a temple in Sigil or the Outlands. Asuras who are not members of a legion often wander prime material worlds for a time, seeking to right wrongs and show others the path of good behavior through their own example. When not engaged in battle against fiends and other vile creatures, Asuras can do as they please within the confines of the upper planes. They are, in the truest sense, free spirits, wandering from place to place, looking for signs of trouble and rooting out evildoers. Other ways of life fascinate the Asuras, and they often attach themselves to other beings who seem wildly different for a while. It is not uncommon for an Asuras to keep company with an Eladrin traveler or a group of human planeswalkers, or to serve as a guardian for a caravan of planar merchants. Asuras also make excellent and willing mercenaries. They are also frequently attracted to pious humans, and there have been instances of children born from such unions. Though they are born without their parents' fiery wings, these children often grow up to become learned mystics and members of religious orders or powerful and devout warriors. Some even become holy slayers, which are elite assassins within Zakara who dole out justice based on a specific set of principles and beliefs. Their eyes always appear to be unnaturally bright, and yes, some of them have the gift of being able to detect lies 3 times per day in the same fashion as their Asuras parent, with the dimming eyes and such. Asuras can also leave the upper planes and live as rogue Asuras, if desired. As creatures born of chaos, Asuras sometimes lose their way. For whatever reason, such an Asura might end up without a power to serve. Such beings typically roam the plains, committing random acts of charity and goodwill. They defend the downtrodden, rescue the oppressed, and provide for the needy. These Asuras often become so narrowly focused that they will do anything to achieve their desired end, sometimes even getting carried away in violence and misusing their powers. Some believe that Asuras who spend too much time away from the upper planes begin to go a bit crazy and lose perspective on the whole good versus evil thing. Such an Asura might attack a hunter who killed a deer to feed the hungry, or maul a wizard accused of giving an apprentice too much homework. However, not many Asuras stray this far from the true path, as most feel the call of the upper planes often enough to prevent such lapses. One example of a rogue Asuras comes from Planes of Chaos for 2nd edition. A rogue Asuras seems to have lost his mind and has set himself up as the keeper of a bridge over the river Oceanus on Amoria, the first layer of Elysium. For those of you who haven't seen my Celestials video, rogue Celestials are those who no longer serve a greater power and have gone on their own, but still serve the cause of good in their own way. These are different from fallen Celestials who no longer serve the cause of good. Sometimes these rogues succumb to the charms of a particularly pious or religious mortal, which led to a majority of the cases of Asuras-born Aasimar as I just discussed earlier. Asuras that are player characters are most commonly rogues, not the class but rogue celestials, those wishing to serve the cause of good beyond the shapeless confines of the vaunted upper planes. In this case, they retain all of their powers and inhibitions, but suffer only the penalties that all Celestials do for extended absences from the upper planes, which I detailed extensively in the Celestials video that I've already mentioned numerous times in this video. Adventuring possibilities are endless, as rogue Asuras often find themselves keeping company with all manner of well-intentioned ruffians and foolhardy crusaders. Asuras are creatures of the outer planes. As such, they don't need to eat, drink, or sleep. Instead, as of 2nd edition, they draw sustenance from the energies of the positive material plane. Later editions just mention that they don't need to eat, drink, or sleep as outsiders. Asuras are noted to serve such deities as Illustrai, Hala Brightaxe, Thardhair, Airdrifania, Ciro Lali, and Yondala. As well, they also serve the Seldarine, the elven pantheon, which consists of Corlon, Deep Seychellus, Erevan Illisir, Hanali Selenal, Lebelis Enareth, Rilliphane Ralathil, Sehenin Moonbow, Severash, and Solanor Philandera. Asuras occasionally cooperate with the Jinn against the Ifrit, but in general they avoid such entanglements, preferring to work on their own tasks according to their own timetables. Speaking of working on their own tasks, Asuras often become involved in the politics of other celestial races, particularly the Aasimar. The Asuras are free-roaming warriors who take great pride in their combat skills, and they generally despise bureaucracy. Of all the Celestials, the Asuras are the most likely to take offense at political maneuverings. They usually prefer to resolve disputes in rituals of non-lethal combat. And speaking of disputes, Asuras dislike both Aasimar and Archons, seeing them as rivals for the attention of the good powers. Both the Aasimar and the Asuras freely roam the upper planes, and both have trouble comprehending the notion of boundaries, so they often cross paths during missions and excursions and frequently find themselves at odds with one another. A casual encounter between an Aasimar and an Asura can quickly escalate into a heated debate, and planar travelers who witness such an incident come to realize just how small the upper planes can seem when two powerful races each feel crowded by the other's presence. Since both the Aasimar and Asuras often serve as messengers for upper planar deities, conflict and competition are inevitable. Rumor has it that a Movonic Deva was severely chided by his superior after calling the Asuras superfluous. So it's fair to say that, although the two races exhibit a fair measure of mutual prejudice, neither is willing to discuss the problem openly or allow it to grow into overt hostilities. When it comes to Mount Celestia's protectors, the Archons, conflicts between them and the Asuras are less common, since Archons usually confine themselves to Mount Celestia, though the Asuras still don't care for them. The Archons don't understand this aversion, as they regard the Asuras as noble and passionate, if a bit disorganized. But it's possible that it's this exact Archon tendency to judge entire races so casually that irritates the Asuras. Scholars really have no idea, though. Still, the Archons constantly try to build bridges of friendship with the Asuras, and such attempts only seem to make the latter more angry. Asuras rarely let their rivalries with members of other races degrade into blows, and they never resort to double-dealing or underhanded measures. Instead, they maintain openly contemptuous attitudes towards both Aasimar and Archons. But the Asuras have much better opinions of the other celestial races. Many Asuras enjoy spending their leisure time on the plane of Arborea. They adore and respect the Eladrin, who are, in many ways, their kindred spirits. Both races are extremely passionate in their dedication to preserving goodness and stamping out evil. Whenever there is a dispute between the Archons and the Eladrin, the Asuras are quick to take the side of the Eladrin, even when logic might dictate otherwise. The Asuras also like and respect the Cardinals, beings who seem utterly peaceful at home and yet frequently mount lightning raids against evil strongholds in the lower planes. Asuras count on Cardinals to help maintain peace between the Asuras and the Aasimar, and they often become annoyed when the Cardinals don't take their side in disagreements. However, there is one very notable exception to the Asura's dislike of the Aasimar, the Wings of Glory. Presented to us in Hellbound the Blood War, the Wings of Glory is a band of Asuras and Aasimar led by the impulsive Kilianthus, a neutral good male astral deva. These Celestials have cast aside their differences to present a united front against the Fiends, to show them what awaits once the evil creatures finish their own squabbling. This group is officially outside the sanction of any races or powers of the upper planes. It's thought that the Wings of Glory might be one of the few things in the multiverse that strikes fear into the black hearts of the Fiends. Knowing that the forces of good are united against them, some believe the Beatezu and Tanari might end the Blood War, even temporarily, as it is really just a fruitless clash of law and chaos, a clash that the Wings of Glory symbolize the overcoming of. But such lofty ideas hardly matter to the Wings, they simply desire to slay fiends. The group travels to the lower planes in forces of hundreds, sometimes thousands, to lay waste as much as possible. The Wings are skilled enough and fast enough that casualties are rare, and they've drawn the fire of both Beatezu and Tanari. However, it's not yet been enough to turn the Fiends from the Blood War. The Wings of Glory, based on Bitopia, also occasionally accept mortals who desire to strike against the Fiends. But every mortal who applies faces a meticulously thorough and imposing array of tests to make sure that they're up to par, and that they are who they claim to be. Over the years, a number of immortals, including a few fiends, have tried to sneak into the ranks. When it comes to creation, Asuras are created in similar fashion to many other Celestials, through divine action. Deities of chaotic good alignment select promising spirits from among their petitioners, the spirits of mortals who were chaotic good in life, and transform them into Asuras. As mentioned earlier, unlike the Aasimar and Archons, Asuras don't rise through the ranks of hierarchy to become beings of greater and greater might. They retain the same forms throughout their lives, which are in fact finite. The spark that gives Asuras life does not grant them immortality, though the actual limit on how long they can live is never specified as far as I can find. As one of the mortal Celestials, along with the Aasimar, Eladrins, and Cardinals, Asuras measure ascendance only in terms of any benefits gained through level increase, which also makes sense considering that both 2nd and 3rd edition Asuras are, as a baseline, much weaker than many other Celestials of the same editions. When punished by the Celestial Tribunal, which we discussed in the Celestials video, Asuras lose 1 level of experience, along with all abilities and advantages tied to it, and they are confined to a plane of the Tribunal's choice for 100 years. Such descended Asuras, however, may gain back experience through deeds just as they did before, with no penalties to reacquisition. As Asuras gain levels and increase their powers, they become more radiant. This luminescence increases their charisma scores by 1 point each level. Although these beings lack the highly structured hierarchies of the Archons, particularly radiant Asuras can easily assume leadership roles. Their innate magnetism ensures the loyalty of the lower-level Asuras who serve under them. Asuras also gain other abilities as they increase in level, detailed in 2nd edition's Warriors of Heaven for Celestial player characters. At 9th level, an Asuras warrior automatically attracts a host of followers, 2d4 Asura warriors of 1st through 8th level. These Asuras are fervent, loyal warriors, although they are by no means subservient. Just like all Asuras, members of this host may leave at any time, but will soon be replaced by others who have, in turn, left their previous host. Asuras who are treated poorly leave for another host immediately, and are not replaced until the leader's reputation has improved. Also at 9th level, any Asura who has not yet obtained a magic weapon receives a +1 Flame Tongue as a special reward. At 12th level, an Asuras warrior may become a trusted lieutenant of a 16th level Asuras commander. Each year of service guarantees the lieutenant 25,000 experience, regardless of how much combat occurs. Lieutenants continue to attract lower-level Asuras as followers, increasing their hosts to 4d4 warriors of 1st through 11th level. At 16th level, Asuras warriors advance to the rank of commander and report directly to General Absalom. At this point, they gain a permanent entourage of 2d4 8th level fanatically loyal Asuras who obey their every order, even sacrificing themselves upon command. In addition to these lieutenants, the commander leads a wing of 10 d10 Asuras warriors of 1st through 12th level. Unlike the entourage, these troops constantly shift from host to host and commander to commander. However, this great following and power comes with a cost. At the beginning of the video, I spoke of the Asura's code, the strict morals they live by. The code of the Asuras also prohibits withdrawal from battle and surrender. According to Warriors of Heaven, those who have shown such cowardice lose part of their life fire, incurring -4 penalties on all attack rolls, saving throws, ability checks, and proficiency checks. If a host leader commits such a cowardly act, the host it leads disbands, and no new recruits replace its members. The punishment for cowardly lieutenants or commanders is discharge from the host and loss of rank. All these penalties remain in place until the offender can redeem themselves by defeating those same enemies to whom they surrendered or from whom they withdrew. When it comes to combat, Asuras are primarily messengers and heralds, not fighters. However, the messages they are asked to deliver have often been messages of wrath and displeasure, so their skills in combat have been honed by centuries of practice. They attack with their ruby-sharp talons, as well as scimitars and great spears. Asuras prefer to remain airborne when attacking and only rarely venture into buildings or underground. Asuras sometimes fight in groups called flights. Members of a flight blow mighty trumpets as they enter battle. To expand on what I mentioned about the trumpets earlier, they can cause rampant fear among evil creatures. Specifically in 2nd edition, any evil-aligned being with 3 hit dice or less that heard this trumpet had to make a morale check, and on a failure, the creature would attempt to flee. Meanwhile, in 3rd edition, the trumpet was called the Trumpet of Doom, and it affected all evil creatures within 100 feet that could hear it. The evil creatures were then shaken for 1 minute, with a will save being able to negate the effect, and it could be blown 3 times per day. When attacking from the air in a group of 3 or more, Asuras are able to create a powerful burning wind with their wings. In 2nd edition, this wind caused 2d10 points of fire damage to evil creatures within a 60-foot radius, no damage to neutral or good creatures, and no saving throw to prevent the damage. This happened every round the Asuras kept up the burning wind. However, an Asura participating in this could not otherwise act in combat. In 3rd edition, this ability was able to be used by any Asura, even while on their own, and it dealt 2d6 points of damage to all creatures within a 15-foot radius. One other thing to mention is a magic item related to the Asuras. These items, the Asura Shields, are wielded by elite Asura soldiers in times of war. Wreathed in holy flames, this +2 bashing, heavy, spiked steel shield deals 2d6 +2 damage, plus 1d6 fire damage, plus 1d6 points of damage of divine origin that affects only evil creatures, essentially radiant damage, but they don't use that term in 3rd edition. Even simply touching the shield dealt 1d6 points of fire damage to anyone, plus 1d6 damage to only evil creatures. These shields are valued at 27,180 gold pieces. And there we have it, the complete lore of the Asuras, also with a stat block converted for 5th edition. Due to the lore and nature of the Asuras, any DM wishing to use these Celestials can mix up combat by giving Asuras different fighter levels as they see fit. Just remember to follow the guidelines on page 283 of the Dungeon Master's Guide for help balancing a monster with class levels. Anyways, that is all I have for the Asuras. I hope you've enjoyed my in-depth coverage of these chaotic good Celestials. If you have, consider liking the video and subscribing to show your support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!